everybody. Welcome to Dandelion Cottage and the 12 Days of Christmas. I'm Leslie Watkins, and I hope you're well and excited about the holidays coming up. I have a really special surprise for you today. Today is day 8 of the 12 Days of Christmas, and if you've been following along, you'll know that I've been presenting a different project every day. Well, today is also Wednesday, and normally I would be having a watercolor Wednesday, but because it's the 12 Days of Christmas, I'm going to combine the two. So I'm going to do a watercolor for Christmas, but I have a very special subject, so let me show it to you. This was blooming in my garden out by the woodpile. It's a hellebore, also known as a Christmas rose, okay? And I've got a whole patch of them going, and they're all setting buds and swelling up and getting ready to bloom. And this one was open just in time for our painting today. So I'm going to paint that for you. So let's turn you down. So the hellebores have gotten very popular lately with the breeders, and they have been making many different colors and forms, and they are readily available at your garden center or your nursery. And there's basically two different kinds. There are the Christmas roses, which is what this one is. This is the Niger, or the white Christmas rose, or actually the black Christmas rose. And there is also the Lenten rose, and that's the one that you usually see that has the pinks and the purples and sort of greeny, pinky tones and rose tones. There's so many now. I think there are even yellow ones. So there's a lot to choose from. So you can just look that up. The family name is hellebore, so that's Hellebore. And but this is the one that you typically see in the vintage Christmas decorations. And this one is just at its prime. It's just opened up. They're very long lasting. They'll continue to open and bloom right through Christmas and even under the snow. So today we have some snow flurries outside. It's very pretty. It's looking a little bit like a snow globe outside. And even when there are several inches or even feet of snow on the ground, these things will be blooming underneath, and their leaves remain evergreen. And you can see it's got this kind of a 5-leaf arrangement, and they're tough. These leaves are tough. They're very strong. They're thick. They're stiff. They have these little toothed edges, the serrated edges, and then the stem is this beautiful kind of a get you in there. It's kind of a mahogany tone. So there's a lot to paint here today. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is figure out my card. So I have some paper here. This is Mossy Meadow, and all of the papers and all of the stamps and supplies that you see me use here and in all of the videos are available in my online store. So if you'd like to recreate any of these projects, you can just wait for the video to be finished, and then I will post all of the supplies underneath, and you can click on that, and that will take you to an online shop, and it will have all of the supplies listed, and you can pick and choose whichever ones you'd like. So this is the Mossy Meadow cardstock, and I really love this color. It's this beautiful, rich, kind of a forest green. And then I have a piece of watercolor paper. So this is a very smooth watercolor paper. And I have a little scrap of the Cherry Cobbler cardstock because I like the way that goes with the Mossy Meadow. And then I've got a couple of scraps of some Very Vanilla, which is a very beautiful cream toned paper. So I want to grab a punch. Hold on just a second. I've got this little 1-inch punch here, but you can use any size punch. A larger punch would be very nice. And what I want to make is a gift card holder. So this is a piece of 11-inch paper, and I've cut it down to 11 by 5.5, and then I've scored it at 4 1/4 here, and then 8.5 here. And it's going to come together like this. There's going to be a little pocket here for you to slip your gift card or some cash or a note or a poem, anything you like that's flat enough. And then it will close like that. So they'll open it, you can put your message here, and the art will be on the cover. So, but before I close it up, I want to put a little thumb tab here. So I'm just going to get that nice and centered. All right, so that way they can take that, whatever it is that you put in there, they can take that out easily. And then the next thing I want to do is make sure that these folds are good and crisp. So I'm using my bone folder. If you don't have a bone folder, you need a bone folder. It's critical. People have been using bone folders for paperwork and bookmaking for centuries, and it's a very important tool because not only does it give you a nice crisp edge, but it also prevents the oils from your hands to transferring onto your paper, and you don't want any oily bits on the paper because it will attract dirt and grime. Okay, so let me just make sure that the computer is working over here, and it is. Okay, and now what I want is, I want to put a little red border on the front. So I think we'll go with 1/4 inch. The other most essential tool that you'll see me use every single time is my trimmer. And if you don't have one of these, I'll include it on the list below later, because you just can't get a good cut and a straight edge without one. I mean, you can certainly do it with an X-Acto blade and a ruler, but this is just so much faster and extremely accurate. So I'm going to cut this down to 5 1/4 and 4. So 5 1/4 by 4, and that should give us about a 1/4 inch difference between the mat and the base, and that looks fine. And then I have this piece of Very Vanilla, and that's going to go inside my card. Just like so. And this is my watercolor paper. Now when you're using fine watercolor paper like this, you typically do not cut it, you tear it. And so there is one straight edge on here, so I'm not going to use that edge. I'm going to be using the torn edges. And I'm just going to measure this up like so. And I'm going to put a little extra red on here because I think I'm going to add some gold foil. So I want to make sure there's enough room for the gold foil to go around. And then I'm just going to fold it where I want it. Give that a nice crease. So I'll go back and forth several times. And then just pull this away. And so let's say, oh, wrong side. There we go. Okay, now get that where I want it. And this does not have to be perfect. It's approximate. I'm just going to turn this up. So you can see this is a very small piece of watercolor. So our painting is not going to be very large. Just a pretty little gift to give to somebody to get them excited this holiday season. And if you have any gardeners in your life, I'm sure you know somebody who loves flowers. This is a terrific present. And then you could have like a gift card to a garden center or a nursery, or even, you know, one of the catalogs that sells plants. Okay, so that's how that's coming together so far. So I want to go ahead and get some stamping done. I want my sentiment to be on the inside, and for that I've selected the stamp set Cherish the Season because it has a Merry Christmas here that I like very much. This is a beautiful script. So I've got that mounted up and ready to go. And I've got my coordinating ink. This is Cherry Cobbler. So that's going to match my mat perfectly. So I've got my foam pad here. And here is my insert. And there's my rubber stamp on my clear block. And I'm just going to very gently make sure that I've got good ink coverage on here. And I'm going to test it. Okay. And I want this to be sort of closer to the top than the bottom. And I'm just giving that a moment for the ink to absorb into the paper. There we go. Perfect. It looks just beautiful. Isn't it pretty? Okay, that's it for our stamping today. We're just keeping it super simple. Now here is my card back again, and I've got my liquid glue here. And you always want to use liquid glue on these pockets, because if you use the tape runners or the glue dots or one of those other types of glues, they don't dry. And over time, if you get some money or your gift card in there, if it slips under where the adhesive is, your recipient will have a problem getting their card out. So I'm just holding that for a moment. It just takes a couple of seconds to set up. There we go. And then here, I'm just going to put a very thin bead of glue around the edge. I'm going to give it a little bit more of a border on the bottom. So I've got the two sides equal to the top. There we go. All right, I'll give that a good burnish. This will help to make the glue lay nice and flat and give you good adhesion, and you won't get any of those bumps. So it's very important to burnish it well. And there's our beautiful gift card. So here is a little scrap of paper. You can see that you can slip something very nicely. Now you also have the option of maybe making another little piece of art and slipping that in there, or a special message would be very nice. You could even stamp it with some images, so you could put a bookmark or a tag. So really anything you like that's going to fit in there and stay nice and flat. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside now while I do the painting, and then we'll continue. So here is my watercolor paper again. I'll zoom you in a little bit closer so you can see. Now off to the side here I have my watercolors, and it's just red, yellow, and blue. I'm keeping it very, very simple. I also have a sponge here that I use to absorb water from my brush. Here's my brush. And I think what I'll do this time is I'll do a quick sketch. So I've got a number 2 pencil, nothing fancy. I'm going to grab a sip of coffee because I can't paint without coffee. It's good. All right, so now let's get out our magnificent specimen. So here is this gorgeous rose, Christmas rose. Just going to put that right here for the moment, and let's see. That looks pretty good. I think you can see that fairly well. Move the water out of the way before we have an accident. Now let's see, because I want this to be a vertical, I'm going to put this going this way. I know you can't see it exactly the same view as I can, because I'm lower than the camera here, but I'm actually looking inside the flower a little more than what you can see there. Okay, so I'm just going to do a very loose drawing and just kind of position my petals. There are 5 petals. Pretty sure they have doubles available now. Like I said, the breeders have been very busy with the hellebores. They've gotten very popular with good reason. It's an absolutely wonderful plant to have. Oh, and I didn't mention that they are very tolerant of shade, so they do appreciate some sunlight. But if you have a place under a tree like what I have out by my wood pile, they will tolerate some shade as well. And I have seen them growing in woodland gardens in great masses with ferns, and they are absolutely spectacular. So if you haven't checked them out, I advise you to do so, because it's one of the very best plants that you can have in your garden. And what else is blooming at Christmas? So it's a wonderful, wonderful surprise to add to your holiday bouquet. And I'm getting this bud, this beautiful bud. It has a kind of a pinkish, greenish cast to it. And then I want to make sure I get a little bit of the stem showing so I can capture that beautiful mahogany color. And the center of the flower is gorgeous. And this one really is, all of the other ones are still in bud. And it'll take a little while for them to open up. So maybe as we get a little bit closer to Christmas, I can go out there with my camera, if I remember, and take a picture to show you how they look when they start to open. But we're very fortunate that today this little beauty is allowing us to paint its portrait. Okay, so there is my rough sketch. I'll bring this down a little bit more. I'm going to move that. I'm going to just get my eraser. I'm going to change the position of this bud a little bit. Bring that, I'm going to have it pointing this way more. I think compositionally that'll work better. Okay, don't forget, you're the designer. The idea is not to copy what you see like a photographer, okay? You are designing and you're adding your own poetry to the picture. And this one actually comes around there a little bit more. All right, so let me see if I can show you that. So just a little scribble, okay, just enough information for me to be able to follow and to be sure that I have it positioned on the paper the way I want it. And then I'm going to take my eraser and I'm just going to remove some of the excess graphite here so it's a little bit lighter. Okay, that's good. All right, we're done with that. And now we're going to paint. So I'm going to start by mixing a very pale green. So I'm just getting my, I know I'm off camera here, but I'm just getting my paints wet. And actually I think what I'll do is I'll give them a little spritz. And by the way, if you go to Dandelion Cottage Design and click on notes and subscribe to my newsletter, I will be able to let you know when the next watercolor course is starting. It's going to be in January. It's a 6-week course, so every week you'll get a different lesson, and there will be a Zoom question and answer, and you'll be able to see what everybody else posts and be able to share what you've done. And I will be taking you through all of the basic concepts of watercolor painting and art so that you will be able to continue with a sound knowledge, and you'll know exactly what kind of materials to use, how to get started, how to set up your work area, your lighting, and how to establish form. We'll talk about values and color theory. So even though it's a short course, it's very comprehensive, and it will help you to get off on the right foot and have good success with your work. So please subscribe to Notes, because that's the only way I can communicate with you. That way it goes right into your email and you'll know exactly what's going on. All right, so now I've got a nice little puddle of green here, and I'm just taking a very light tone, and I'm just going to get the leaves started. Okay. So where are you watching from? Is it snowing where you are? Are you getting ready for Christmas? Have you started making your Christmas cards yet? I hope that these 12 days of Christmas have given you lots of ideas for Christmas cards. There's a broad range of styles, from elaborate to very simple, something for everybody. And of course, I don't have to tell you, but this is a fantastic year for sending cards, because we're not able to see so many people that we would normally see during the holidays. So a handmade card letting somebody know that you're thinking about them over the holidays is a wonderful thing. And also, it's a lot of fun. It's a really nice way to spend the time, you know, as you're making your cards and addressing them, you're thinking about all the people in your life and you know, wonderful memories that you've had. So share that with your family too. Okay, so there is my first wash of color on the leaves, and I'm just going to mop up some of this excess water, because I don't want to have to wait too long for this to dry. I want to be able to show you how to mount it on your cards. So I'm going to paint a little faster than I would normally do if I were by myself. Alright, and then I'm going to get some nice clean yellow, very pale, and get my center of the flower started. There we go. And there is a kind of a little greenish tinge underneath there, so I'll get a little of that. There we go. Okay, and then the petals have some beautiful little folds in them, kind of pleats. So I'm just going to begin to paint some of those, the more distinctive ones. There we go. All right. And this is just a mixture of whatever's on my palette. So it's just a little bit of red and blue and a tiny bit of yellow, so that I've got this nice gray mixture that leans a little bit towards the violet, but keeping it very, very neutral. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And now I want to get back into those leaves a little bit. So now again I'm going back into my yellow and my blue. And there's a little bit of red in there too. So this is why I rarely clean my palette, because the mixtures that are already on there are very useful. So I'm looking for a slightly darker green now to begin to get into some of these shadow areas. And I want to be careful going around the petal here. So I think you can see that the leaves are quite dark, and they are mostly in shadow. So I'll be able to get some beautiful rich tones. Here's my stem. And I'm going to add a little bit of red to that stem because there's that beautiful kind of mahogany tone. So I'll just get that right in there, and I'm going to let this just disappear at the tip here. There we go. And now let's get this beautiful bud. So it's kind of a greeny, sort of a yellowish green. So we'll get that started on there. There we go. And then it has this most beautiful kind of a creamy white. You know, it's a warm white. It's just lovely. Get a little bit darker under here in the shadows. Under here too. All right, now I'm going to, you see I'm moving all over the picture at the same time. You want to develop your painting as equally as you can all around, not get hung up in any one spot. All right. And the center is very pale of the flower. It's almost like a beige. Like it has a little tiny bit of pink in it, so I'm going to add a little bit of pink. There we go. All right, so now that I've got it sort of roughly blocked in, I'm going to add some details. So you remember that these leaves have some little serrated edges to them. So I'm going to indicate some of those little points to capture the character of these leaves. There we go. Just like that. And up here. You can see why people call it a Christmas rose, even though it's not in the, well, I was going to say it's not in the rose family, but it does have 5 petals, so I'm going to have to look that up. Because obviously it's not a, it's a perennial, it's not a woody shrub. But I will have to ask the ethnobotanist in the family whether or not this could possibly be related to the roses, because it does have 5 petals. If you don't know, my partner is a botanist, and in addition to being a fine artist, I'm also a master gardener. I love, love, love flowers. And so between us, we've got a pretty good knowledge of what's going on out in the garden. Okay. We're almost done. Just a few more details. You know, it's easy to get carried away, but we have to remember it's a card. All right, it's not going to hang on the wall. So we don't have to spend all day on it. Just enough to make it beautiful. Okay, and it doesn't take much. You can do this, folks. You know, I can hear you. I hear what you're saying. You're saying, oh, I could never do that. You're so talented. You're an artist. But no, that's not how it works. You practice. You practice. And if you spend enough time, you will see results. And if you've got somebody who can help you and show you the way, you're going to get those results even faster. So, so if this is something that you think you would like to learn to do, then don't hesitate. This the course I have up, Watercolor for Beginners, is really geared for people just starting out. So you will be in good company, and you will definitely come away knowing more than you did when you started. And who knows, you could have a new vocation in your life. All right, so this is coming along nicely. I am just mixing up some darker tones now, and I'm just going to add just increase the color a little bit here and there. And there's a place in the flower that needs a little bit of attention, so I'm just mixing up a kind of a yellow-green. Get that in there. I'm going to be a little touch darker. There we go. All right, and finally, I'm going to get back into those petals and get the just get those little shadowy areas where the petals overlap one another. There we go. And a little bit over here. And tiny bit here. And we're done. There we go. Oh, maybe I have to get one more stroke on this bud. I forgot my bud down here. Okay. All right. So that is our painting done. Let's get this back into the water over here. So there's our picture. Okay, now I could certainly spend another 5 or 10 minutes getting some of the veins on those leaves and just a few more fine details, and probably after it's dry I will do that, but for now we're going to stop. And I'm going to get this desk cleared away, bring my card back, and see how this is going to come together. So there's our picture, and I have some of this gold foil, and I think what I want to do, let's see how this looks with the gold foil behind it. Oh, that might be a bit too much. What do you think? What do you think? I'm going to look at the comments here and see if anybody has any thoughts on the gold foil. I see Carol. Carol, what do you think? Abby? Oh, the ethnobotanist is here. Oh, for heaven's sakes. And okay, what do you all think? The gold foil or not? Is that too much? I can't believe I got caught by the ethnobotanist. I wonder if he heard me talking about him. All right, well, it's hard to say. Hard to say. So there it is with the gold, and there it is plain. You know what? I'm gonna go with the gold. It's not something we do very often, and this time of year it's kind of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side, and I'm using the liquid glue, and I'm not going too close to the edge because the glue will not be absorbing into the foil. And let me just measure. Okay, we can go over to here. And then I'm going to tear away the excess with using the ruler as a guide. There we go. And my ruler, get this where I want it, just like so, and I'm just going to tear that little piece off. And then we're going to need a little strip to extend this further down. So I'm going to get that started. Okay. Same thing. There we go. Get that lined up. And that's all there is to it. Now I like that irregular edge, so I'm going to leave that. And I'm just going to give this a good burnish. There we go. And while we're at it, I'll just apply our mat to the card base. Make sure you've got your card opening the right way. I find it easier to put my mats on with the cards open usually. And just shift that into place exactly where you want it. Give it a couple of minutes to set up, or seconds actually, not minutes. There we go. Give that a good burnish. And now for our picture. And if you like, you can sign it. So I'm going to go ahead and sign this one with pencil. Again, add a very thin bead of glue, not too close to the edge. Like I said, because we're using the metal foil, it's going to take just a little bit extra time to dry. But there it is. Okay, and we have our beautiful matching envelope. This is one of the very vanilla envelopes, and this paper just is lovely. You know, it's got a wonderful tactile quality to it, which I think is important when you're giving these nice cards to people. So there it is. There is the magnificent Christmas rose. What a plant, huh? What a beautiful plant. We'll bring that back into our viewer here so that you can see it. There it is. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. Please visit my website at dandelioncottagedesign.com. I have a lot of things coming up. There is a BOGO event. We're going to continue with the 12 Days of Christmas. The latest edition of Notes, the December edition, just went out yesterday. It's not too late to sign up to the subscribe to it so that you can see what classes I have coming up in December. And registration closes on December 9th so that you still have time. And even if you think you're not going to be interested in taking a class, you never know. Maybe somebody on your gift list might like to take a class or get that beginning watercolor course. So check it out. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending the time. And thank you for supporting my business. I will be posting below all of the tools and the materials that I used to make this card today. It'll take me a few minutes to get that posted, but you'll be able to click on that link. It'll take you right to my online shop. And with that, I will say stay well, stay safe, and stay creative. And I will see you tomorrow at 12 noon. Bye for now.